Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of the Pitt Season 2, Episode 5, 11 a.m. I'm going to start my review with just my general thoughts of different things that appear and happen in this episode, and then I'm going to go by patient and their storylines and what's going on with the characters involved in them. So Dr. Al and Robbie still have a little bit of flirty vibes going on this episode in the beginning, but then there's a moment again where Dr. Al has to put her foot down with Robbie and be like, let me in here and let me know what's going on. Again, remember, she's taking over for Robbie on his sabbatical, and she's going to need as much information as she can get about these patients and obviously about the workers. She has another big moment with Dr. Langdon here when Dr. Langdon tells her that Robbie's clearly not happy he is there, but she's like, well, he's not going to be here, and I'm happy you're back. And I already see them setting up that season 3 is going to be Robbie's reaction from when he comes back from his sabbatical and what Dr. Al has changed with everybody and what goes on in his ER. And you'll see throughout the episode that Dr. Langdon is still trying to chat with Robbie outside of the patient cases whenever they're in the hallway, and he still wants nothing to do with him. And it's showing this fault of Robbie where he's letting his own bias now take away from making smart decision making, like letting Langdon get involved when he's really needed. And you see Dana's really trying to push Robbie in that direction and see that. Dana will have another great line where she literally says to Robbie about Langdon as he walks by, "You two kiss and make up yet?" And Robbie says in reply, "I think someone needs to smoke a cigarette." Great moment. Now, another interesting development is seeing Hastings again, someone who also has had a fling with Robbie, and she's teasing him about his sabbatical, and she thinks he's only going to make 4 weeks on this trip, 7 weeks max. She will tell Dana, though, that Robbie is someone who doesn't like to be alone, that he even sleeps with the TV on. And you see how defensive Dana is of Robbie. She doesn't want to smack talk someone she loves so deeply and cares for, like a Robbie's very protective of him. And you could tell she really doesn't get good vibes from Hastings. But it was good to get more information about Dr. Robbie because he still is a mysterious character, being our main character, and knowing more and more about his life behind the scenes. Now, Olga V is going to have some really bad luck this episode. First, he's treating an unhoused patient who has a wicked cough. It turns out to be tuberculosis. And now you're seeing the situations these med students, nurses, doctors are always kind of put in here where there's always a hazard where you're working and that he's going to have to get tests done. And if he tests positive for TB, he's going to take all these meds for months. And it gets to the point, too, where they have to warn everybody who is in the waiting room. So really stuff that just kind of goes by your head when you think about hospital visits and what can happen with these workers. Before we get into what else unfortunate happens for Olga V and his day, I do want to touch base on the teen brothers that come in that were branding each other with dry ice. I did think it was funny that their family crest is actually the Penguins logo. These little moments remind you they're in Pittsburgh. And it was nice to see Langdon and the nurse being interested in watching the video of the brother actually branding his brother. Okay, so let's go to this constipated patient that Olga has to take care of. You see, this is set up because Santos is really struggling getting her charting done, while Dana's constantly throwing patients at her. She gets her Olga to help her, and Dana says, "Chart while you supervise, best I can do." So it's a middle ground, but I love that Dana is always putting the patients first. She doesn't care about a worker trying to prevent themselves from working overtime to do their charting. She sees a patient struggling. She knows that person needs help. That comes first always. And it's a great precedence to set being a leader in the hospital like Dana. Now, the x-ray comes back for this patient, and Ogilvy's like, "Oh, fecal matter." And Santos says a S-ton, which was hysterical. And she says, "Time to dig in." And she says she knows the perfect person to teach him as Whitaker walks by. Of course, poor Whitaker's got to be the one to do it. I love comments people were making on the Reddit last episode. That would be amazing to see a sitcom of Whitaker and Santos as roomies. I would totally be down for a whole show between the two of them and their life. It's one of the most endearing, funny storylines going on in the show. But I love when Whitaker is teaching Ogilvy about this. He shows him to use his finger like an ice cream scooper. But then things get wild. This lady farts, and then Whitaker tells Ogilvy to back up. It's too late. The explosion happens, and Santos is all of us in this moment laughing. It was such a great moment. And it couldn't happen to a better person in Ogilvy. Now we'll see Dr. Al will suggest to Santos this AI app for her charting to make it easier. It makes you wonder too if Dr. Al had this plan all along to really get into Santos about her charting, and she was expecting her to fall behind as a way to pitch why this would be useful. She says you will really have to stay overtime to complete your charts. Dr. Robbie overhears this, and he says, well, now hospitals are going to expect us to treat our patients even quicker and more patients coming in. They're going to abuse us with this. But Dr. Al says, I'm not an advocate for erasing my own profession. I'm advocating for spending more time with my son. Nothing can replace family. This is a touchy subject with AI, and especially in a hospital workplace, and how much to use of it and how much not to use of it. So I think this show is trying to balance seeing different sides of it. Your opinion on it is up to you. It's an interesting storyline, and seeing it how it progresses through the season, how it can be applied to a real life situation, and what could be good and what could be bad from it. Now let's go to the leg and foot infection of this patient who was a cliffhanger last week, Debbie. I love that it puts Langdon and Robbie in a room together. That's been some of the most compelling stuff so far this season. We see her body's having an overreaction to her infection. Her evil boss is basically calling her during all this, not giving her a break, and she's afraid she's gonna get fired. This is when we have a great Robbie moment, why you gotta love the guy, where he sticks up for her and basically tells the boss, she's going to sue you and will testify, leave her alone. It's a moment you just stand up and clap. They realize they have to tack on more antibiotics for her. The situation is getting more serious as the episode goes on. Then she develops a bulla that appears in her leg. This is where Robbie starts really taking this seriously and is getting frustrated because they send a med student down from surgery who's taking photos of the bulla. And he's like, where is Garcia? And then when Garcia comes down and is clarifying how big of a risk this bulla is and it's spreading, and Robbie connecting those dots, he just goes what he would say later on about another case, full MacGyver here. Goes for it with the cut. Just another amazing Robbie moment. But what would really help this case is bringing Langdon in when he needs him, and it's just Robbie's bias right now of not trusting him. And it's really Robbie's big oversight this season. Now let's go to the family who they're struggling with the insurance. Joy has a great moment, and her character gets better each episode. When all hope seems lost for this family and how they're going to pay for all this, these cost-cutting options that they're offering still are very high. But Joy is the one who says, well, why don't we do a cheaper treatment? Something that Samira did not think possible with the situation of him being attached to the drip. And I love Samira gives Joy her props at the end of this. Like, she's not someone like a Santos who might be a little jealous in that moment or not admit that someone else was right. And we learned Joy knew this because she's been in the situation. Her grandma had leukemia. She has a great line, Joy, saying, system doesn't work for you, you gotta work the system. So I really like this story because it's very realistic. I've been in these situations. I feel like so many who are watching have, and it's nice that they're highlighting it in a show like this, and it makes you relate to Joy even more. Now let's go to this new patient who's a lung cancer patient who had a seizure, and that's why she came in. This is a very sad story right from the start. She's with her husband. They have 2 kids. So that's going to add more to the emotional weight of what happens with her, because McKay is treating this patient, and her kids are around the same age of McKay's son that we met last season. You know things are more serious when the death doula is coming in. Now, they're about to send her home. They give her a morphine tube, which was kind of cool to see. I didn't know this was a thing, that every 10 minutes she can elect to inject more if she needs it. And they give her a walking boot. She doesn't want to pee in the bedpan. She tries to get up on her own, and you see how serious the situation is, to the point where the doula actually asks the husband to come out of the room. This is where it's very sad. You can see it's affecting McKay too. So this is going to be, I think, a huge tearjerker storyline as the season goes on. It's a very serious case, so we'll see how it goes. Now, we also get to see what we haven't seen yet in the show, having these prisoners come in the orange jumpsuits, and you see that is why the cop has these protocols he is very serious about really not cuffing them unless they really have to. So it was cool to see that angle and how much of a chore that could be for just the doctors working around that. Now let's go to the big cliffhanger and the big moment, I think we could all see coming from the beginning, that if they were bringing back Louis this season, you knew something tragic was going to happen, and it's starting here. And this is huge because Louis is the most recognizable, most famous patient we've seen on the show yet. He's the one who's going to have the most weight out of anyone because of how much time we spent with him if something happens to him. So that's why this is a huge cliffhanger to me. You see Louis getting shaky, and Langdon says, let's get Louis 50 grams of Librium. Whitaker instantly says, I'll put in the order. So awkward this moment, and the face Langdon gives him is great. And Whitaker's just thinking what the right thing to do in that exact moment is and feels terrible about it after. But he opened up to Samira about it, and she's like, look, Langdon's working the steps. Hopefully, it's all behind him. And that's what we, the audience, are hoping, that Langdon keeps it cool and that he is fully recovered. We'll see. Which I think he will be through the whole season. I think this whole season is obviously him redeeming himself and gaining Robbie's trust back. I think it would negate this whole storyline of Robbie trusting him again if he was just a relapse. Now, Robbie goes to grab Louis a beer as a parting gift, and this is where Louis loses a pulse. Having it that they end it in this big cliffhanger with Robbie and Langdon the ones on the scene, this to me is just setting up, this is where Robbie and Langdon, I think, are going to bond again, and Robbie's going to trust Langdon again. I think it's going to be something they work through together, whether we lose Louis or not. There will be a bond there formed. So really good cliffhanger, but I gotta say, I hate this credit music that comes up right after this moment of this just light This Is Us type guitar riff. I hate when they use that music in the show. It makes sense in some of the more episodes where it's more lighthearted end, but this was not the right fit at all. So a little bizarre and weird tone-wise. I wish they would just cut using that music altogether. But overall, I thought this episode was good. I don't think it was great. I think it was a little like a piece of chicken that's just kind of dry and bland without any sauce on it. Like it gets the job done, but I'm not really totally satisfied or anything exciting really happening here. I just think it's more of a transition episode setting up this big cliffhanger and moving some plot lines along with characters. And obviously, I think the standout storyline this episode was Olga and what happened with him. But just overall, just a decent, very short episode, 2 shortest of the season, just okay. So I think it's still solid though, and it does live up to Pitt standards in general. So I'm going to give this one an 8.1, but I think it's not the heights of the last episode, but definitely still not the lows of, to me, what episode 3 was. So I liked it, but not blown away either. But enjoyed it. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it, what you think's going to happen, your theories, everything going on. And please subscribe. It helps in so many ways. And please come back each week. I really want these Pitt reviews to do well and have a big discussion with everybody. It'd be really fun. And I appreciate every single one of you who are commenting and watching, even if you're not commenting. You guys are the best. I'll see you next week.